Peer pressure. Peer pressure is the influences by our peer group that surround us and push us to do things that we either don't want to do, feel uncomfortable doing, or that we know won't be safe. This can end up being good or bad. Bad peer pressure. Almost everyone can account for some time when their friends have put them in a place where they didn't feel comfortable. This is a perfect example of bad peer pressure. Your friends pushing you into doing something that you know isn't safe and shouldn't be doing. You can usually tell if you're in a situation with bad peer pressure. Maybe your friends are pushing you to do something that's illegal, like use drugs, alcohol, steal, vandalize, the list goes on. The most common situation for bad peer pressure is when you're at a party with your friends and there is alcohol or drugs present. You know it's not good for you, but they push you into doing it, and you have to make the hardest choice, saying no and looking like a coward, or saying yes and fitting in. It sounds easy to say no to your friends, but in the situation, it can be one of the hardest things. Almost everyone can account for one time where they felt inclined to do what their friends were doing because they were peer pressuring them. Saying no isn't as easy as it sounds. During times of peer pressure, it really lets you know who your true friends are. If you stand up for yourself and say no, and your friends back you up, you know that they understand you. But if they continue to egg you on, maybe you should think about finding a new friend group. Depending on the situation, there can be many different types of peer pressure. If it's direct peer pressure, it's your friends telling you or asking you to do something. It can also be indirect peer pressure, where you may do something that you wouldn't usually do, but you do it because you're hanging out with a certain group of friends. Examples of direct peer pressure would be your friends asking you to drink with them or smoke with them, and if you don't do it, they make you feel bad about yourself. Indirect peer pressure may be that you decide to drink or smoke with your friends, but not necessarily because they ask you, only because you're hanging out with them and they are doing it. Sometimes your friends aren't even aware that they're peer pressuring you. If you let them know you're feeling uncomfortable and that you don't want to do what they're doing, a lot of the times they'll back off. In fact, you may have peer pressured your friends into doing some things. It could have been good or bad. Peer pressure doesn't necessarily have to come from your friends. A lot of the times, peer pressure comes from adult figures like coaches or parents. Parents wanting you to be like an older sibling, and coaches wanting you to be like another player. Another form of peer pressure that's more uncommon is individual peer pressure. Occasionally, if you move to a new place or start a new job, you may push yourself out of your comfort zone and make new friends, or go to new places. Peer pressure can also be a very good thing. If your friends have ever pushed you to do something you weren't comfortable with, but it ended up helping you out in the long run, it's positive peer pressure. Good peer pressure usually involves your friends having you step out of your comfort zone to try new activities. This can be very helpful because you never know if you like something or not. You could be trying new food, trying a new sport, traveling to new places, almost anything. One way your friends can peer pressure you that you might not have thought about before is by motivating you. This can be done with exercise and work. If they're telling you to keep pushing and you may not be able to push anymore, then it's positive peer pressure because it will help you out in the long run. One form of positive peer pressure is almost the exact opposite of some forms of negative peer pressure. This could be forcing your friend to break a bad habit of theirs, one that is dangerous and could risk their health. If you have a friend that's pushing you to quit drinking, smoking, stealing, or any of the other results of bad peer pressure, then this is good peer pressure. It may be hard for you to stop. but your friend is pressuring you, but positively. Your friends might peer pressure you into breaking bad habits. These bad habits might not necessarily be the ones that are life-threatening. However, they could be ones that improve your work ethic, such as getting your work done, working harder in school, or working harder at a job. If you've ever had a friend that's pushed you to try rock climbing, go on a roller coaster, or maybe even try something like surfing for the first time, this is a form of good peer pressure that might not necessarily help you in the long run, but it'll get you to be a more adventurous person and willing to try new things. Like I said earlier, coaches can have a big part of peer pressure. It can be bad, but it can also be good. If a coach is pressuring you into working harder, being more active, or having a better diet, these are all examples of good peer pressure. The one time you shouldn't necessarily say no is to good peer pressure. If your gut is telling you that you're doing something wrong, or maybe just not trying new things, then you should try and listen to your friends. If they're pushing you to step out of your comfort zone, but to be adventurous, then it may be a plan.